I moved to Vermont in October 2008.
Where were you before that?
Los Angeles, California is where I met you.
That is true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your father first. And then, actually, no, we met here. Oh, no, we
We
did. We had
did.
coffee in Los
We
Angeles.
had coffee.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I learned about your project. You
Yeah.
invited me to come. And the
Interesting.
next summer,
Yeah.
I came to
Wow.
Zeno and discovered this wonderful world that you've created up here.
Well, it's just kind of happened.
Have you ever woken up to a crowd wearing princess costumes, then spent the afternoon sliding through the woods on a 200-foot slide into a pond, and ended the day lying under a storm? Welcome to Zeno Mountain Farm, where every day is quirky, playful, so alive, and built around one question. How does everyone, with and without disabilities, participate in the meaningful things of life? Eating together, making music, shaving outside, sweeping bricks, making plays in movies. What began as a small film camp in California is now a year-round community in Vermont where all bodies and minds are represented on stage, on screen, and in everyday life. Before Zeno, I had no idea I could share a group of friends with my brother, like friends, not family friends. Never in my life had I seen groups of friends, not counselors and campers, with and without disabilities, even cognitive disabilities, so naturally all in. In episode 4, Will shares the philosophy of inclusion in action. Showing up, whether it's helping someone eat, shower, or put together a playlist for dinner, creates common grounds where every contribution matters. And that builds something bigger than us. I'm Leah Hirschfeld, and you're listening to Out of Sync, exploring life through disability, one story at a time. Full transcripts are on our YouTube channel, and new episodes drop every Tuesday. Time to grab a cup of your favorite drink and enjoy the story.
Creating would suggest that, we had a master plan and that we knew what it was going to be, and it's evolved. It's changed a lot. And,
But what is Zeno? For people who don't know about
oh,
it.
well, Zeno is the easiest explanation is it's a camp for people with disabilities, and everybody has their opinions and ideas of what that looks like. And I think the common idea of what that looks like is children who, are using wheelchairs and sort of well-meaning teenagers taking care of them, and they do sports and arts and crafts and have a great time in the summer, which is great. I think that's a perfectly decent thing in the world. But if you came to Zeno in the summer when we have like one of our bigger camps, you'd see adults, 95% adults, and we do have a few younger folks, but they're actually getting older now. And you'd see a community of friends. You'd see a large group of 80 to 90 people all living together and supporting each other and doing art and theater and music and sports with a level of connectedness and intensity that might surprise you. And that's built out of basic building blocks. One sort of key one is that everyone is invited back forever, year after year. Well, most of the people who come to Zeno have been coming to Zeno since we started, and a lot of the folks we've known for years before that at other programs. Another big piece of it is that no one is paid or no one pays to participate, and that's sort of the non-commodification of it is really important because we don't want to have any sort of social hierarchy, and we don't want to suggest to make the suggestion that, okay, well, there are these people, there's a group of people in one part of the camp that don't have disabilities, and they get paid to take care of the people with disabilities.
It's not about caretaking. It's about living together.
It's about living together, and the fact of the matter is we all have needs, massively wide variety of needs. Some people need a lot of help, some people need a little help, some people need emotional help, some people need physical help, some people need help in daily things, and other people need help more on the macro. When you're a participant in camp, it's our goal as a community to make sure that everyone's needs are met. So the line between people with disabilities and people without disabilities is intentionally blurred. Everybody is expected to contribute to the community to the full extent of their ability, and perhaps beyond what they think they can do. That can be pragmatic, that can be helping someone eat, but it can also be, we're having a dance party and it's really important that certain people bring the energy up at the dance party. And there's certain people in our community that are very skilled at that. It can seem, you can look at those two things, feeding someone or bringing your full self and energy to a dance party, as not equal, but in the camp world, those things are both extremely important and critical to everyone's experience at camp. We're doing a play. We're not, oh, if you can't do it, that's okay. Like we expect people to bring it, because it's going to affect the performance of everybody else on stage and the experience of the audience. And not only is it going to elevate the play, but it's going to provide the sense of like, I'm important to this community, I'm important to this audience, and not just for the situation, but also for the individual, because that's how we know we matter.
And to be expected of. I mean, I feel like a lot of people who experience a disability in the everyday life outside of Zeno,
Yeah.
often people don't expect enough. It's like we tend to consider some difficulties or some as limits,
Yeah.
instead of working with them, and instead of trying to find everybody's possible contribution to a situation or to a job and often, like, especially in the world of intellectual disabilities, I think, well, that's the world I know, we'll let people on the side because it's too much effort to try to find a solution. It's like time consuming, and
Right.
it makes people kind of go past their intuitions and self-put boundaries.
Yeah.
And I feel like what Zeno values really, which is to expect things from everybody, no matter what we're going to expect from you, is very, very important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's even societal wide. It can be even worse than that, where it's not just that people aren't expected to contribute and participate.
They're ignored.
Or even worse, they're taken care of, and you get this dichotomy where it's sort of like they're the people that are the caregivers and the care receivers. And I can't imagine, I don't know what it's like, but I can imagine, I guess, what it would be like to just being taken care of all the time, to sort of feel like, am I a burden on the world? The care should be just expected. People's needs should be met, like across the board in healthcare and everything. So like, let's just take that off the table. Like, unfortunately, that's not the case. I mean, there's a lot of places that have to fundraise to have people's basic needs met, which is ridiculous. But we sort of, beyond that, it's sort of like, okay, like, let's figure out ways that people can feel like they're contributing, not in condescending or placating ways, but like actual, like this is why you're important. Give people the opportunity to receive a genuine thank you for doing what you did. I appreciate you. Or even like, where were you? I thought you were going to be here. Mm-hmm. Like that's where self-esteem come from. Contribute something, and then following through with that. I think it's a basic human right. I mean, I think like to not have that opportunity is cruel, to take that away from people. Because we're a camp, these ideas can be really explored and highlighted, because it's 80 people living together for a month in cabins. So like, the smaller contributions and the nuances of people supporting each other can be witnessed. And furthermore, like, when there's a gap, when somebody doesn't contribute, the community as a whole suffers. So the highlights and the lowlights are both sort of exaggerated, because we're living in this bubble.
How did you get involved with the world of disability at first? Is it a family link at all, or?
No, and I think it's funny that because people ask that a lot, and I always sort of give the same answer. We'll do a movie screening, and for anyone that hasn't seen any of our movies, they're super fun. They're like really weird pieces of art, and like, people will watch the movie, and then the audience will ask like, why do you do this? Do you have like a sibling or something? And I'll always say like, what, did you not just see the movie that I just saw? Like, did that not look like fun? Like, what part of your confusion is like, what? Are you kidding? These are the most exciting, interesting, diverse, creative, energetic, spontaneous, like, people I know, and not just the people with disabilities, but just like everybody in the camp community. So I always find it strange when people would ask me why. But I think what they're really asking is, why aren't I? Why am I seeing this for the first time? Where have I been in seeing this world for what it can be? And I think that that's probably what they're getting at, because I think they're probably saying to themselves, the only reason I would ever have exposure to this is if I had a family member or something like that, which I think is a sad.
Well, it's often the case. It's a sad reality, but it's often the case. When I came to Zeno and I realized that many of the people who were around didn't have a intimate relationship to it, but were just happy to be here and curious, and it made me cry. Really, because I mean, I knew that my connection to it was my brother, but I didn't know that people did that, for families. There's a lot of exclusion. We were taught that people didn't want to be involved with it. Like I was taught that my brother didn't have a place at school, and my parents learned that too, and he probably learned that too. Like, we were taught in many ways that he didn't have a place in the world.
Right.
And that people, if they didn't have a relationship to it, couldn't understand and couldn't have the space in their hearts, like the empathy and the curiosity. It is special.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I was just thinking that, the folks that come to camp from the non-disabled world are usually friends of the people that have come. It's usually like, you've got to just come to camp. They're like, oh no. And then like, you just come. And then they come, they're like, they have that moment that you had. And they're like, it feels like I'm on another planet. It's drug-like. It's an alternate reality. It's exactly. And I think that there's so little exposure to this world outside of family circles and then camp. And that's a big piece of why we try to be, really outward, like that's why we make, one of the reasons that we make movies and do the theater stuff, because we really want the world to just, if we have like sort of a North Star larger mission, it's really to shift the idea to give those people they're like, oh, I've never seen this before. I didn't know this existed. I'm being genuinely entertained by a group of people that I thought I was supposed to feel sorry for and just like maybe, take care of somehow. Yeah.
And so how did the idea of a camp come?
Well, Peter, my brother, and Isla, my sister-in-law, had worked at different camps and programs pre-Zeno, and sort of dipped our toes into the camp culture and disability culture. And I was teaching school, and Peter was teaching school, and Isla was studying to be an occupational therapist. And Vanessa, my wife, had just sort of always been fascinated by, subculture. And we'd also had sort of started smaller camps with some other people. We started a camp in Mexico and in Maryland at one point. And so we sort of knew that we could do it. And when I was in California and in the land of filmmaking, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to start a little camp, where we make movies together? Because everyone I knew was in the movie business, and it was like, cool. So we just brought friends out from these other programs and organizations and set up a little nonprofit, and it was called the Cheshire Project at the time, and just started making movies.
Can you tell me about a movie you made?
Yeah, well, our first movie was a bit of a disaster. Not much to say about that, but our next movie was a pirate musical called Return of the Muskrats.
Extra, extra! Read all about it. Pirates loot Cheshire City.
Here, totally aggressive. Swords, knives, maybe even guns, nunchucks, I don't know. They took my pineapple pizza. The best slices I have, if you ask me.
It has a cast of about 40 people with and without disabilities. We were living in Venice, California, and we had this little apartment building thing, and we didn't have a lot of money. We'd raised a little bit of money. We didn't know a lot about filmmaking, and we just said, let's just go for it. And we had, 35, 40 people living all together for 2 weeks with the mission of making a pirate musical. Like that was the only thing that mattered to this relatively large group of people living together. And if that sounds like a horrible situation to be in, that's fair. But for me and these 40 or so other people, it's a dream. It's an absolute dream. And when you're with a group of people that feel that same way, it's like there's just nothing stopping us. We're waking up early and so we can like sneak on to the beach to make a film when we're not allowed to, and we're getting chased away by security guards. We're eating ramen, and we're just absolutely doing everything we can to get this done and working so hard and just loving every second of it.
And you're in your 30s then, right? You don't have kids yet?
No, this is like 2005 or something like that. Yeah, 2005. And we ended up getting it done, you know, and the movie's rough and it's like 25 minutes long, and it's if you watch Return of the Muskrats, if you're like me, you'll watch that and be like, "Oh my God, I wish I was a part of this group that made this," because you can just tell by the costumes and the spirit of the people and the missed cues and the boom mic in the scene that it's all very rough and fun and taken seriously in an all positive way, you know. And then it kind of took off from there. So we made movies pretty much every year for about, I guess, 8 or 9 years after that. Yeah, so we have a nice fun little library of weird movies, all of which are consistent with a pirate musical, like very quirky, you know. We premiered a movie that was called Finding Zac Efron, which was a fake documentary about a friend who was sick. And we decided that instead of making a movie, we would find Zac Efron, because she was a big Zac Efron fan, and we would get Zac Efron to take her to a movie premiere to cheer her up and make her feel better.
Who does Elizabeth love more than anyone else in the world?
Zac Efron! Her whole room is solid posters with Zac Efron.
Elizabeth is completely obsessed with Zac. She cuts out every photo, even the smallest little article. She will find him in the magazine and cut him out and put him on our wall.
So, I thought we should spend the next 2 weeks focusing only on finding Zac Efron.
We're gonna hunt for Zac Efron and record the whole process.
We've made 5 great movies out here in LA, but now we're doing something completely different.
Okay, so we are gonna run this like a mission. We are an army. It's not like we're gonna call 411 and get Zac Efron's phone number. He is the holy grail of all celebrities, and we are gonna hunt him down like a tiger.
Did it happen?
Well, you'll have to watch the movie. Yeah, it kind of, sort of, yes, it did. Not because of the movie, but we did find him, you know, along with a lot of other things. But we filmed it in real time, so it was like great. And so it's all the things that happened, but also most of it was scripted and planned.
The way you tell your stories, no character has its story focused on the disability.
Yeah, and that's in part because I don't feel equipped to tell anybody's story like that. And also, like, that's what, every time you see a disabled actor on screen, it's like, that's what it's about. It's like, oh my gosh, they have a disability. And it's usually like something sappy or sad or motivational or inspiring or, you know, I mean, all the tropes are pretty locked in at this point in terms of Hollywood, you know, script writing for you know, disabled characters. So we like to just flip the script on it, you know, and just like make movies that are fun and not about disability and not sappy, you know, and write to the talents of the individual too, because a lot of times, you know, our friends with disabilities have very unique characteristics, which when celebrated and highlighted and leaned into can be a real asset artistically. So, and same thing with screenwriting and film. It's like these are the motions or the way this person moves. So let's write a character that highlights that and sort of uses those gifts to, you know, bring their best performance and not try to be something that they're not. So.
When you tour and when you present movies, do you try to give out some specific messages, or are you just there to be with your crew, and how does that go?
There to be with our crew, because they're so much fun when we go to film festivals and stuff like that. It's like we like to party, and I don't have like a big soapbox, and I think that's part of what we want to do with the movie. I'll give an example. In our last film, Best Summer Ever, which is our first feature, and it's a teen musical, and it stars two young people. The female protagonist is a wheelchair user, and the male protagonist or lead, I guess, is able-bodied. And there's a scene where the sun is setting and they kiss. They have like a make-out scene. And I was sitting with my friend Lawrence Carter Long, who's a longtime disabled activist and but he knows everything about every movie that involves disability ever made. And he and I were sitting there and we looked at each other and we're like, has this ever been done before? Have we ever seen someone that looks like Shannon and someone that looks like Ricky kiss like this on screen? We were like, I don't know. What I want is, instead of, having like a big soapboxy message, I want people to watch that scene and ask themselves, why haven't I seen this before? This seems so normal, and it's just something that has been missed. My job is to present it in a way that feels natural, that feels like, yeah, why wouldn't they kiss? They're dating and they seem that the chemistry's great, like they would kiss here. If people can have that moment of seeing a film that we make and asking themselves, why isn't there more of this? That's the moment. Like that's the change that we hope that we're having. Sometimes after a movie or a play, someone will say, I didn't expect it to be so good. Which I always think is a very strange thing to say.
It is.
Because you're basically admitting that you had very low expectations and that we drastically, exceeded it. So we did our job, and I think that person who says that is they've had that moment, like without telling them what to think or preaching to people, like we've managed to sort of shift someone's consciousness in the right direction, so we just want to make great movies and have fun.
I know that you inspire a lot of people, but have you been inspired by somebody or by an initiative that kind of helped you think about what you wanted to create out here and what you wanted to do with your life? Because it's a life project.
I'm inspired by everybody that comes to camp. I got obsessed with a water slide about 10 years ago, because we have this pond here, and the pond is sort of at the bottom of a hill, and it's a spring-fed pond. It's really beautiful, but both my brother and I were like, it'd be awesome if we could have more water coming into the pond, because that would make it cleaner. And then I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if there was a water slide that was bringing the water? So I got totally obsessed. But I eventually figured out and ended up with a 200-foot water slide that like shoots you through the woods. It's so fast and so fun. It's so much of what I do is like what would be awesome for camp. Just the stoke on people's faces coming down that water slide. I get so much joy. I don't, you probably see me I'll love, like when we're all down at the pond, I'll like go and I'll sit and I'll just watch people come down the water slide and scream and cheer. And every time someone comes down, everybody cheers, and it's accessible so that we can drive one of our sort of wheelchair buggy things that we have right to the deck of it so that everyone can come down, even our folks who are wheelchair users, and something like that would be really not particularly accessible. Like we've figured out ways to get everyone to go down. Yeah. And I love weird ideas too. Like I just think it's so fun to care really deeply about something that doesn't really matter. Like it's not heart surgery, it's a play. If we decide the night before to just not do the play, there'll be a bunch of parents and community members that are disappointed that they didn't come to the play, but no one's dying. Like it's not heart surgery, but to approach it with like deep concern and care, like to really lean in to things like art, to sort of play with that dynamic about caring deeply for something that it's absolutely thrilling to be with a group of people who can share a creative vision like that. There's so much energy in that.
And it's also caring about what appear to be little things. That's what I learned also with my brother, because sometimes just a little thing like reading a sentence with like a victory. For some other people, it's like, okay, great.
Yeah,
he's 12.
Well, I mean, everything is so arbitrary. I mean, like the World Cup just happened. You watch the fans crying and just like throwing their bodies, and absolutely going bananas when there's a goal. Like, but the only reason that it matters is because we've all just decided that it matters. Like we can create our own arbitrary things, and that's totally valid and fair and fun to do with everyday things that happen all the time.
So you were in Los Angeles for years, for like 15 years, doing film camps.
Yeah.
And then you moved to Vermont.
Yeah.
Why? How?
The nonprofit in Los Angeles started growing, and we started doing more camps. So we were doing some music camps out there and some sports camps out there. And we were doing, I guess, 4 or 5 camps annually, including the film camp. There was a great energy for it in Los Angeles. We met a ton of great people out there that were involved. It just sort of seemed like it had legs. And then Pete and Isla and Vanessa and I kind of decided like we should probably take this to the next level where we could have like a proper facility and expand our reach, kind of make this a real thing and not so much a side project. And we were all on board, and we all love Vermont. Both Pete and I went to college here, and Vanessa always wanted to move to Vermont. So we just started looking for land and property. The nonprofit that we'd set up in California was well established. So what we were able to do was just sort of change the name of that and maintain the business side of it and turned it into Zeno Mountain Farm. And we still ran a bunch of the camps out in California. We're still making movies out there for a while. But slowly over the years, everything's shifted to here. And now we're running lots of camps. We do a camp pretty much every month here now. And what I'm really excited about is what we're calling affinity camps. And I'm not crazy about the name, but I'm working on it. But we're doing camps for not just folks with disabilities, but also we have camps for people with chronic illness and people with cancer. And we're doing stuff with veterans and people in the sober community, and also looking to work with other groups for which community is difficult to come by. And what's really exciting to me is that all of the work and philosophy and ideas and structure of the camps that we had built around our disability community applied to, say the cancer community, it works. We can bring an entirely different group of people here, and camp feels like camp.
And also like a retreat too, because it's not a calm retreat. And
Yes.
you do find a certain type of something else, peace, a place of balance.
Yep. Yeah, retreat, we play with that. Retreat, a lot of times it's something that people pay for, and camp's more fun. I think I love the idea of like, because it's all adults, and it's like, I'm going to camp. Like,
Yeah, who does that?
Okay, that's whimsical. And so that sort of plays into our ethos. Trying to describe it all is a struggle always. We had an early motto, which was stolen from Lewis Carroll, was the best way to explain it is to do it, which doesn't even make sense. But that kind of describes like, yeah, if you want to understand who we are and what we do, like come to camp, and you'd be like, okay, I get it. At every camp, like there's something that's more important than everything else. Like that's like a secret to it. It's sort of like the play. Like we have the play coming up. It's the most important thing. And it's sort of, when everybody's focused on that and in agreement of like, this is really, really important, all the other stuff, the differences in personalities and the work that I have to do, and like I haven't slept, and like all these things that occupy us in the default world, like sort of go by the wayside because like there's this other thing that's more important. If everybody just came and we just kind of did things and just had fun, and like that might be great, but I think what brings the community together is to have this other agreement that we all share. I mean, I think it's like we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Like that's a core motivating factor in life. I want to not matter as much as I think I matter to myself. If I matter to this community or this job or this family, and I can forget about myself because that is more important to me than my needs and my ego and all the things that swirl around in my head, then I can disconnect from myself and you feel free.
Mm-hmm. You decided to move to a rural environment and to build tree houses.
Well, that's an example of us sort of following the wind that was blowing past us at the time because we moved here and we're like, we need to build cabins. And everybody kept, in town was like, oh, you got to meet Beaver. And this Beaver became this like Lorax type character that we needed to meet. And Beaver it specializes in building wheelchair accessible tree houses. So obviously people were like, you got to meet Beaver. So we did, and we hit it off with Beaver. He's incredibly talented. And so we immediately formed a deep bond with Beaver and also Bobby Stoddard, who came to build our earliest tree houses and then continued on with all of them. And when people understand, like they're not tree houses like you go to the base of a tree and you have to get up into the tree. It's like there's no ladder. So it's like the ground is very slopey here. So you would walk along a path and then the ground would fall away and the path would stay high and then meet a tree mid height. So the tree houses are like 20, 30 feet off the ground, and they're so interesting and cool. And I don't think we would ever build two buildings or cabins that are similar. Everything has to have its own personality and funk and character and sort of reflect the time that was happening when it was being built and who was building it and all that. And what's really cool is that everybody participated when we were building our cabins. Like we'd have weekends and we'd just be like, whoever can come up, so we have all these great pictures of all of our friends with and without disabilities, like wielding power tools and putting down the decks and the bridges, and it was a great phase of our timeline. And it's beautiful. I mean, I think, and that's a big piece. It's like it really want it to be beautiful. And I want people to come and feel like out of their world and into like a different altered reality, feel like a break,
And how do your kids feel about this whole?
I hope they think it's strange. I hope they don't just think that it's normal. I don't think they do. I think they love it. I mean, they really, really love camp.
Because they grew up in it, really, also.
Yeah, and they know a lot of people they grew up with, and camp is where they want to be. It's where the excitement is happening, and there's always a dance party, and there's always exciting costumes to put on, and fun things that are directly appealing to a kid. I don't think that they have much of a sense that our friends with disabilities are any different in any meaningful way than our friends without disability. It's just like this is our community. These are our people. This person presents this way and this person presents that way. And that's just part of the spectrum of being a human being. I have seen my kids very happily interacting with folks outside of camp with disabilities and without, but with a certain sort of patience. And I've seen them sort of give people an extra moment, I think, is sort of like the way I would describe it, where it's like because maybe they have a disability, I don't know, or maybe they're just having a bad day, or maybe they're grumpy for one reason or another, and I think like nobody wakes up and chooses to be short with you. It's because of whatever has brought them to that moment in their history or their day. And I think camp has probably shown my kids, like, don't just assume this is what's right here. It's like maybe there's just a little bit more, so maybe take another moment in any situation, before you react. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
it does.
Yeah.
No, it really does.
It would be easy to just sort of look at it and be like, well, my kids' influence on camp, or the camp's influence on my kids is that they're more understanding and tolerant and patient for people with disabilities, and they sort of like, but I think it's more like the whole camp culture, going into a world where people are genuinely caring for each other and the community, and then also living deeply in the present moment, and the things that are important are the things that are right in front of them. That has probably had the most effect on them in terms of how they approach the world and their relationships.
What do you think would be the biggest learning from camp and from deciding to do this? I mean, you did it with your wife, with your sister-in-law, with your brother.
Yeah.
Your kids are involved. It's an all-in project.
The things that are important are the things that you decide are important. And there's obviously low-hanging fruit with your family and your loved ones, and it's like those have a lot of intrinsic value to them. But even then, it's sort of like, how much are we going to invest emotionally into something? And kind of being all in on something is the way to go. I think it's like, if I'm going to love someone, I'm going to love them with all of my heart, and to the point that I'm annoying them. And like anything less is just, I'm just protecting myself from something. So I don't see the point, to elevate its significance just by virtue of my concern for it, I think is sort of, it's a really fun thing to play with, because we can create an enormous amount of value based on how much we care. And that seems sort of magic to me, that we can do that. It seems very magical. So I'm going to do this either way. Like, let's care. I like that.
Thank you, Will.
Sure.
Thank you for this time together. It was great.
It's great chatting with you.
You've been listening to Out of Sync, exploring life through disability, one story at a time. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Transcripts are available on YouTube, and French language stories on Decali, Decales. I'm Leah Hirschfeld. Thanks for listening.